Just do a little quick reaction to the patch notes, my thoughts, what I think is going to happen, and then we will move on with our usual programming. I've already looked at the patch notes. This isn't a blind review or a blind check. This is mostly just giving what I predict to be the changes, or like the slight meta shifts. I could be totally wrong. Hopefully, it'd be cool if I'm right about some things. Then I'll give my overall thoughts about the state of the game and what they wanna, and what I think they're trying to do with it, and what I like and don't like. Let's get into it. First, ranked map pool. I like the ranked map pool, and personally, as someone who wants to get better at water, having Baltic and Canal as a hybrid, and then like more of a pure water map, I really like. I am a pit enjoyer. I know plenty of people hate the pit. I like the pit. I think the only map that I'll probably regularly ban is Cliffside, actually, because with how much English is spammed, English is so hard on Cliffside. And I'm just kind of tired of the map. There are like times I'm getting like Cliffside like 6 games in a row, so I'm kind of done with that one. But I think there's a good balance of maps is the key here. You have your Hill and Dale, which is more defensive, allows for more boomy civs. Big China enjoyer in Hill and Dale. You can also do trade, like Abyss of Trade, you can do in Hill and Dale. Like, there's options. You have Gorge as your smaller attack map, so is Cliffside. Rocky River is also a larger map, but not as boomy because of the location of resources, so you're just not going to see... So, like, 2 big maps, but good for different things. Arabia is your classic open map. Hemiyama is like a small hybrid, but you don't have to go water. And once again, you can boom on it, you can play aggressive on it. Mostly more aggressive. The only true boom map is Hill and Dale, but I like it. Team ranked map pool. I'm not a big team rank player, so I'm not going to sit on that one. So first, the sheep change is huge. I think so. One of the biggest complaints you hear, like high level players, and I think anyone would say, is that the sheep RNG is not fun. Like, too often games can be completely decided, not because someone took a better scouting pattern than somebody else. They literally take the same scouting pattern, but someone happened to run the sheep and someone didn't. And that level of RNG is just not cool. So having 5 sheep at the start makes it so there's good balance. If you get some more sheep, awesome, but you can do enough off the rip. With like, if you find 2 sheep, you'll be okay. And starting with 1,000 food is just a little bit more forgiving, but not making the game easy. You know what I mean? I think this is a good change. Some changes to maps, mostly just to make sure Ubus and pit mines work. That's great. General fixes. The biggest one that I really like, fixing bugs. That's awesome. Don't really care much about these. I check them and nothing I feel like happens to me or most people a crazy amount. The attack move one is huge. So the issue with attack move before is that if you were trying to A move into either a large fight, and like clicking A for a general attack and sending your army forward, it was really hard to do in a big fight, or if you're fighting in like someone's base. And the reason being is if you accidentally clicked on a building or like a farm or another unit, all your units would attack that, and it would be very, very annoying. So if you wanted to just tell your units to just attack in general, you had to A move in an empty spot outside the base or outside the fight. This has changed it so if you click attack move, no matter where you click, it's a general attack move. And if you want them to actually attack specifically, you will right click without the A move. I love this change. It's just a nice quality of life. It has nothing to do with like skill expression. It's just purely, that just makes more sense. It makes life easier in a fair way. So I think that's awesome. Some balance changes for civs overall. It's nice that buildings that make economic and military units will have different rally points. I think that's really nice. Trying to change the dock rally points depending on fish or ship was really annoying. So it's nice now you can set different rally points. I think that's huge. The other one I think is really big is villagers will now deposit carried resources when they complete a farm. It's matching the same thing that would happen if you built any other economic building. Like the Chinese opening, when you would gather wood but then build a mill and they drop the wood off in the mill. Same thing, makes a lot of sense. It's great. Secondary town centers now garrison 8. Not making it as, they didn't fix the health, nor do they make the garrison too big. So it's just trying to give TCs a little more staying power. I don't want to go back to the time when second TCs were given. There was a time when second TCs were so strong that you couldn't stop the second TC. So basically everybody 2TC'd. Like, it was just like a handshake agreement that everyone started 2TC. That's boring. I like this. What is nice about this is that now if you have your TC on a boar, you can garrison all your villagers, which is a nice little touch. Horseman range increase. I love this. I'm a huge horseman enjoyer. The problem with horsemen is, one, they can get rolled a little bit even if they have greater numbers, and they should be doing better. Two, the pathing can really fuck things over. Pathing I know is harder to change. Increasing their range just makes them a little bit more forgiving. It makes them a little bit more better. So let's give some examples. They're diving gold and they're chasing villagers now. Much better chance that they can get that last hit to kill a villager, or they'll just kill more villagers, so their raids are more effective. If they're surrounding a ranged ball, so there's like a group of crossbows or archers and you surround them with your horsemen, will do a lot more damage and will be a lot more effective. And lastly, another example I think of, trying to get to siege will be a lot easier, so it actually makes them a more legitimate siege counter than going pure springholds. And now lastly, if you're doing a feudal all-in, you make a lot of horsemen, and your opponent does something like fast castle, and then start making knights or start making men-at-arms, if you have a lot of horsemen, you can legitimately surround them and beat them with groups of horsemen, so your feudal all-in isn't like completely killed just because, you know, they made a few men-at-arms. So I like that a lot. Some naval updates. They nerf fishing overall by making the fishing boat train slower, which is important. Fishing is so overpowered. In maps that you have fishing, you basically have to go fishing or you're gonna kill yourself. So basically the thing I want to say up front, and what they mentioned at the beginning of the patch notes, is that they're being careful about changing too much. With Red Bull Wololol coming up, which is a huge tournament for AOE 4, not as big as we'd like it to be. AOE 2 still gets the head honcho spot. There's a whole controversy around Red Bull Wololol. Go check BST if you want to see the whole thing. But I appreciate the developers are aware of tournaments. They're like, we're not going to change the meta an insane amount, which would ruin the viability of that tournament or the legitimacy of that tournament. So they're doing nice changes, but nothing too ground shaking, and they're saving their changes for the next patch that they have stated is going to be in August. So they've already stated mid-August, another patch that's going to have a lot more changes. So and also in general, I think it's important for people to realize that when you have such a complex game and you have 16 civs who all need to be relatively close to each other balanced, the smallest changes can have rippling effects. Like a civ getting a slight production bonus or getting a slight improve for one of their units can completely have ripple effects that change the entire meta. So in general, they should always be a little bit more careful, but they've also been willing to make big changes. I think the general trend you see with the devs is they will try to do smaller tweaks, and if that doesn't fix it, they will then do a larger change. So for example, like if you've been playing this game from the start, you've seen some insane shit that they've changed or added and fixed. Keeps and TCs used to be impossible. A bunch of new units have been added, from the Keshik to the Gulam. A lot of the newer civs have a lot more unique units. English got the king. They used to just make mass springholds and win. The list goes on. Like, things have gotten a lot better, and it's because they take a generally measured approach and do swift, larger changes when it absolutely is necessary. I appreciate that more in a game like this. Oh, last thing I mentioned, the horseman range increase is like a shadow buff for Order of the Dragon. With their tanky horses now have larger ranges, they're even scarier. So stealth buff for OTD. So let's go into the changes. Abbasid, bug change. Cool, whatever. Byzantine. This is a great example. There's plenty of people who want Byzantine nerfed to the ground. There's plenty of people who would argue Byzantine's fine because of win rates and stuff. Byzantine is a very good civ. The difference is that it's not like as easy of a civ to operate, so it still has poor win rates. I mean, I'm here losing on Byzantine trying to learn them, but I can recognize they're a very good civ in the right hands. So I think a slight nerf is worth it, and they should try slight nerfs first before doing too much of a nerf, because Byzantine used to be trash. So Olive Grove in cost increase from 60 to 70, I think is a fair move. I don't really care much about their ships, whatever. Then it's mostly just like bug changes. But I think the Olive Grove, I think it's a nice small tweak. Normal farm cost is 75, if I know correctly. It's normal farm cost is 70 or 75. I think it might be 70 actually. So this is bringing them in line with the normal cost farm. And then the thing to remember about Byzantines is that their farms are still jacked as shit. Yeah, because English farms are 30. Or 36. English farms are 36. Abbasid also get cheaper farms if they do. Abbasid get cheaper farms with eco upgrade, with their eco wing upgrades, and Zushi gets cheaper farms, or maybe they just get cheaper buildings. I don't remember, but Zushi also gets easier farms. We have to remember, Byzantine has some of the best farms in the games because of their cisterns. Cisterns give them huge gather bonuses, so their farms are juiced as fuck. I think at full cistern, their farms have like the gather rate of boars, or even more so. So they're really, really good. It's crazy. It's crazy the food economy you can have with like 30 farms or 40 farms. So I think this is worth it. And honestly, yes, 75 for a normal farm. And honestly, if they end up doing like, if they even make the farms more expensive, calculated in the extra eco advantages, I don't even think that'd be bad either. But I appreciate the smaller fix to see if that does it. China. This is a wild one to me. So they looked at the landmarks, right? China can get all their landmarks. So it's not like something where they're trying to make it more like they're trying to make you pick this one more. Like you can get both of them. Everyone always usually goes Imperial, or usually goes Clockwork to get the better siege. They've increased the radius of the Imperial Spy ability from 1.25 to 3. Huge. They increased the duration from 10 to 15 seconds. That's crazy. Now you'll be like, especially if their villages are around the map, you'll get basically a snapshot of the entire map and also important information. Like you might catch units near them. You might catch if they're building something, like a lot of some things. Like what if you, like before you could see them, but you couldn't really see a lot of things. But now if there's a bunch of them building like 18 stables, you'll catch them making a stable transition. Like this is actually pretty wild. And I've been messing around doing Imperial Palace first for China if I feel like I need to do a lot of raiding to get back in the game or maintain lead, and I think this makes it even more viable, which is interesting. I don't really think it's going to be meta per se to go at first, but it's a nice option. Delhi one is wild. So overall, if you were to summarize this, it is they want to make Delhi viable on water, at least hybrid. The biggest issue of doing Delhi on water is they did have fishing ships who could shoot, but they often missed. But the biggest issue is Delhi is one of those civs that starts with a lot of things you need to build with wood. You need to build a mosque. You build a mill, you need to build a mining camp, you need to build a house. That's a lot of wood. And so what they did was they went, okay, on hybrid maps, you don't have to start with a mosque, you can start with a dock instead. So now docks spawn with a scholar in it, if it's the first thing built and not a mosque. Free scholar in the dock. Docks will then produce faster once they get the upgrade. Fishing boats no longer miss. Now then the docks now generate influence. You can put things around docks and have it be like bases like you have for mosques. And you can increase the dock garrison capacity. And now the docks will hypothetically make things faster. So once you get the upgrade, you could start massing warships a lot faster than other civs. So it just makes Delhi like, I think, a legitimate water threat, which is cool. It gives you more variety, because right now what kind of makes water maps stale is that there are very few civs that are really, really good at water, and the rest kind of suck. So like this makes them more viable. English is another example of trying to do a small nerf instead of a huge nerf. People want English nerfed to the ground. People hate English. They want English to die. I think the devs really view English as they want kind of a busted civ that new players can feel good playing. So I think this is a nice slight nerf. King training time to 50 seconds just gives you more time. First King is an instant. First King took 35 seconds. Now it's increased to 50, so it gives you even more space to set things up before the King gets there. So if you're thinking about 2TC, if you just need to get a wall up or get your first spear out, you now have even more time. White Tower production speed reduced. I honestly think the biggest issue of the White Tower is two. One, their garrison space is 20, which is absolutely fucking insane. Yeah, it's free, not instant. That's a good point. The two biggest issues is the garrison space of the White Tower at 20, which is just busted as fuck, and then how it can make siege. So you're putting on a landmark where you can instant make siege, and if someone attacks, if you go 2TC with the White Tower, you have 15, not plus 8, so that's 23. Plus 20, so now you have 43 spots. So like you can't even really do that much eco damage if you dive them right when they finish castle, because all their villas can just hide in all of their garrison spots. So if they reduce the garrison on the White Tower to like 15 and made it so they can't build siege, I think that's fair. And keep its damage, it can make all other units, I think that's fair. French, a slight increase to their villagers, a nice change to their artillery, specific like to a specific thing they can do with their artillery that makes their cannons really good. Okay, whatever. Holy Roman Empire. So marching drills at its base is 10%. They're changing it to 5% in Dark Age to really nerf the Spearman Rush. You might not have experienced the Spearman Rush from Holy Roman Empire if you played maybe like Silver, Gold, or Plat. but it is awful. It is awful. I was playing as Mongol recently. HRE fought me with spears, and I couldn't move because his spears were so fast. It was awful. Japan, we get some interesting ones. I'm still concerned about the 10% marching drills in feudal. I wish they did like 5 in Dark Age, 7% in feudal, or maybe 2% in Dark Age, 5% in feudal. I don't know. The 10% in feudal is a little bit monkus. It's like the 10% in feudal is rough. It can be because if you lose one fight, they just run you down. It's really, really bad. One second. I think I'm 1 second. I think my dog saw a ghost. It's freaking out. All right. Here we see the devs really trying to make Shinobi legit on land. For those who don't know, the Shinobi can only be made in a landmark. But the problem is that the other Japanese landmarks are a lot better. It gives you free farms. It gives you food once those farms are done. Kuro Storehouse. The Koka Township was great on water maps because the Shinobi could sabotage docks, and that gives you a huge leg up. Part of the big issue with Shinobi is how clunky their powers were. They basically try to make their powers better. So the blink, which is like a teleport, is cast time is reduced, and the sabotage is now reduced in speed, or technically increased in speed. So they're trying to make it more viable. That's nice. I'm going to talk about what I think you can do with them in a second. I like actually both these changes. This is a ship change. I'm not too worried about it. Yumi, their archers, are increased to 60 to 65 health. And here's why that's a big deal. The base archer, so a normal archer, has 5 base damage. So this gives them, Yumi, an extra hit before they die, which is a big deal. 1 hit can be the difference between winning or losing, especially when you're doing mass and VMAS. The cast time is how long it takes them to cast. So like before, if you click cast, it took 2 seconds for the cast to hit. It was very slow. But anyway, back to the archers. So now they can take 1 extra hit, which was really, really big deal. So they're fast, they're cheap, and they can take an extra hit. I did quick calculations. It takes Yumi's 18 shots to kill a normal archer, and now it takes a normal archer 15 shots to kill a Yumi. So the gap's closed. And once you add the Bannerman and how much you can massive Yumis, I think a Yumi Archer Ball in Feudal could be a legit strategy against non-Night Civs, especially if they're not expecting it. So maybe there's like a build you can do where you do a very quick TC upgrade and then go mass Yumi. I mean, you can even do a thing where you get mass Yumi and then split them up into smaller groups and just hit all over because they're fast. The only thing that can chase them is horsemen. So I think there's possibility there. At least it then makes the Yumi fast castle build a lot better too. I'm telling you, these small changes matter a lot. Tatara recruiting cost, so you can get that. That's the first melee damage that you upgrade. It's cheaper, so that's nice. Koka Township, the Shinobi used to not get military upgrades, the military academy upgrades. Now they do, which is nice. Here's what I think you could do with Shinobi. You ready? Here's what you can do with Shinobi. You think if Civ's gonna fast castle, you go Koka. You build 4 Shinobi. Since your blacksmith is your forge, you then rush up siege engineering, and with 4 Shinobi, you hop in that fucking ram, and then you push their tower on the gold. And then what you can do is you can hop, just when the ram hits the tower, they hop out of the ram, and they all sabotage, or one of them sabotages the building, which does instant physical damage to the tower. So I think that tower will probably go down really fast. And then the thing about Shinobi is that their melee damage is insanely high. It's very, very good. And so you need archers to kill it, but if you make archers to kill them, well, then they'll hop in the ramp. I've had that done to me even before these changes. It's pretty good. So I think if you want to be change up for Japan, like a sneaky fast castle shutdown, you do Shinobi into a ram push. and I think it's actually kind of legit. Mongols, they mostly just did some bug fixes. They adjusted the pastures to match the reduced amount of food on a sheep. This Mangadai and tower change is interesting, and the early horseman's huge as well. So let's talk about this, because once again, small tweaks that could have huge differences. Mangadai are not really made very often because they suck. Their damage is really low, and they're really squishy. But honestly, the biggest issue is that their cost is so high. Their food cost is really high at 120 food. That's more than a horseman. And so what they did was that they reduced the food cost to 90, but increased the gold cost to 60. And it costs less stone to double produce. Here's why I think this is really interesting for Mongols. When you think about it, you mostly use Mangudai when you're going trade. What are you getting from trade? Majority gold. So what this allows you to do is if you're doing trade, you could do this pure Mangudai build, and it's now more affordable to do that while trading because they cost more gold now. And then you mass Mangudai and use them to defeat the trade route. And let me tell you, if you get enough of them, they do pretty well. If you ever want to see it, go watch Faye play Mongols. She always does Mangudai. And it's a little bit of a meme, but like it works. Like she beats people regularly with it. Because people don't realize how good Mangudai are. People just often go them because their cost efficiency isn't great and you need a lot of them. But now you've made it more viable. So I don't know. And they take less time to train. So I'm just saying, test it. Second town center is now cheaper, which is nice for Mongols. And lastly, this is the big one. So early horseman, as an opening, is rarely done and compared to the spearman into tower rush. Big reasons. One, tower rush. I mean, you get a tower up that's a lot more secure. And the early horsemen are considered pretty weak. So giving them 1 extra ranged armor and combining that with the extra attack range for the horsemen, I don't know. I think the horseman rush could be legit. And here's how it would work. Here's when you would do it. If you want to harass but get a faster feudal timing, you do the horseman. Why? Because in this opening, you're spending less overall resources. You're doing 150 for the stable, then 100 food for the horseman, 20 wood, and you would double produce them once. And you do those 2 horsemen to push them off gold, and you can stay on the gold until they either make spearmen, or you can then use them to just harass woodline or things like that, and they can tank a little bit more of the TC fire. Compare that to the normal opening for Mongols, which is 150 for barracks, and then you're doing 60 food, 40 wood for spears, and you do that multiple times. It's 40 wood for spears, right? Or is it 20 wood for spears? I don't know off the top of my head. But anyway, you will make 3, 4, 5 spears. Now, you will double produce them a couple times, but then you're also doing a 100 wood tower with a villager who is not gathering the entire time you're doing that. So that's a huge eco difference. So if you want to do a harass but not invest the resources that a tower rush takes, I think the early horseman openings are very viable. Just saying. Malians, this is insano to me. 10% of their food as gold. You have to remember that fishing boats drop off 30 food, I think, each drop off. So that's 3 gold to drop off. Once again, they're trying to make Malians viable. They're trying to make another civ viable for water. And the gold as food makes it so, once again, the big issue with Malians is that, do I do 150 wood at the start for the pit mine, or do I do the dock? And that decision sucks. And now they go, hey, you don't have to do the pit mine. You can go do fishing, you'll still get gold, and then as you get wood, you can then add the pit mine later, and now you have a shit ton of gold. So it just feels like, they get legitimately fast castle almost just fishing. You drop 1 pit mine, you just fish a shit ton, you defend your fishing, boom, you're going castle. Not that simple, but like, I don't know. I feel like this could be really good. Anyway, Ottomans, they reduced the nerf on the military schools, but not fully. So they used to produce at 4.5 the speed, then they nerfed it to 5, and now they reduced it to 4.75. So they're going middle ground. Once again, military schools are slower than they used to be back in the day, but faster than they are now, which was needed. It was too much. It was honestly too much. And then they fixed some other things around the Instable Observatory. But this is a nice little, once again, small tweak. We'll see the ripple effects. Rus, thank God, their fishing boats are so good. 1 fishing boat is worth like 2.5 of a normal fishing boat because they don't have to return back to base to drop off and they gather extra. So I think Rus is by far the best fishing civ. So I think nerfing them is appropriate. Variant civs. Thank God. So once again, IUBIT is a civ that people want to nerf to the ground. And once again, they did a small tweak that I think really, really matters. Military Wing, the big issue of Military Wing was that the Desert Raider would come out instantly, so you had very little time to respond to it. Taking 15 seconds for the respawn to come out just gives you time to do something. A wall, a tower, a spearman. Like, those 15 seconds matter a lot. I think it's a solid change. Reducing the number of villagers in the Economic Wing from 8 to 7. I honestly wish it was like 6 or 5. But it's something. And once again, they probably have the numbers to say, well, 8 instead of 7 changes this percentage, but whatever. Then they try to make Feudal Wing, Trade Wing better in response. It's whatever. Okay. If you don't know what Adabegs do, you put them in production buildings and they increase the speed of the production. So it's like a scholar. Jeanne d'Arc copies French. And then this is just a bug change. So overall, I think for a patch that is being done before a major tournament, I think it's a really solid patch. It gives some key changes to civs that are a little overpowered. And then later on, if it doesn't work, they can do more drastic changes. They then tease some interesting stuff, a full rework of the Rus bounty system, a new unit for the Mongols, more attacks for Delhi, and they say it's going to be in August, which is really, really key. Where is that? I swear they said it was going to be August. Where is it? A few weeks after Red Bull. Oh, when does Red Bull finish? Why do I think August in my head? But when after Red Bull finishes, we'll get their next patch, which is nice. And then they tease, I think the next new civs will come out in spring 2025 because they say even more exciting offerings. So if you're wondering about when the next civs release, I think it's in 2025. Keep in mind, I think civs take a long, long time to make. And I think every time they add more civs, it will take a slightly longer to add the next set. Because whenever you add civs, you have to consider all the new things you add for them. How does that affect balance compared to the other civs? Is that fair in that civ pool? Because the biggest issue that any game has when it adds more heroes, civs, whatever mechanic they're adding, is power creep. It's very easy to make the next thing you add more powerful. And so I'm okay with them taking a little bit more time. I like the changes. I'm interested to see what these changes lead to. And that is my thoughts on the patch. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. I hope you subscribe and watch me on Twitch and a bunch of other stuff. Everyone else, let's go play some games.